Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got a fantastic guest for you today, Aline Hanle, coming from the great city of Austin, Texas. And she is founder and CEO of Experience Extraordinary. We'll hear all about what that is. And she's a great guest for all of the female entrepreneurs, executives, high income earners on the show listening about empowerment, resilience. Alina, welcome.
Thank you so much, Christopher. I'm so excited to spend some time with you and share all that I can to support your beautiful audience.
Yeah, I love hearing everybody's origin stories. Briefly, 1 to 2 minutes, talk about what you do, how you got there, and how the audience can benefit from your expertise.
Yes, absolutely. So I am French originally, come from France from a background where I experienced a lot of disempowered aspect of myself, where I would say the world came to crash when I turned 24 years old, and all dimensions, physical, financial, relationship, professional, everything just fell apart, and for the greater good, which at the time I did not understood. I did not understand, but eventually it was really when the crack happened where I had to go look for different answers to find myself. And then in the meantime, right there, like 2 3 years into my discovery, a self-awakenings, if you will, in France, I moved to the States. So I was 27, 28 years old and find myself in the big unknown as a little French, not knowing the language. And talk about finding yourself in the unknown, I was in the middle of it. So it was the journey of really reconnecting with the version of me that didn't know herself as a French, with all of what the outside environment had made me literally parents, authorities outside, and really having the fantastic gift to rewrite history for myself, and literally finding which story would actually fit the narrative of the hero or the one who actually stand on top of her game. And I did. And it turned into this amazing business of mine that's called Experience Extraordinary, which really uses the journey that I had embodied myself and that I turn into strategies and processes and programs to help others just do exactly the same thing.
It's fantastic. The more and more entrepreneurs I talk to, they talk about this experience of the world just collapsing in front of them. For it could be 9/11, could be 2008, could be 2020. A lot of people have not experienced this, but they are they will experience this at some point in their lives. So, what is the one advice you would give to someone who is struggling in their life? This breakdown? It could be a midlife crisis, could be a spouse cheating or walking away, they lost the business, COVID. How do you reconcile this?
Yes, of course. The first invitation that I offer is to really look at instead of looking at it from a perspective of survival, which something seems to be going away from me or falling apart from me, is to actually be willing to take a moment to look at the other side of the coin. What if it actually lead the way for something else behind? Like something is definitely falling apart or collapsing, changing, which means by design of duality, if something leaves, something must come. Nothing is just created as in a vacuum. Therefore, it's to really expand a little bit the mind to be more curious than actually being so connected and attached to what is falling apart, but really have that more flexible mind, which is part of the programs that I offer, is to like build that strength in flexibility instead of attachment, so that we can actually start seeing more of the greater picture and recognizing if something falls apart, it must be for my greater good that I don't see yet. And then to reattach with what can that be? I don't know, and become comfortable with I don't know, which the mind usually is not.
Which brings me to this next question is people describe this experience where like they're holding on. And last night I was just watching this documentary. It's just like this woman, she's basically forced into this narrative to marry and have kids, and it's just she does things to self-sabotage herself, and people are just clinging on to these narratives that they just these kind of like emotional struts. So what is intuitive strategy How do you use it? What is that for the audience?
Yeah. So intuitive strategies is a, I would say, a way to use something logical that is not coming from a linearity and a structured mindset, A to B to C, but because very often the mind is going to be prepared to see D and is only going to see D. The principle of intuitive strategy is to understand that life is not linear. It is actually holistic. And by design, A may be following by C before B and before accessing to D in order to experience life in a more effortless way. And being able to detach ourselves from a linearity that is actually going to create stress, to trust that if C shows up, although I don't see B, then I must be jumping to C because there is a strategy that allows us to sense that C is actually before B. And that, once again, it is to relate to ourselves in ways that we have not been taught to do because we have been taught to think very linearly for survival instead of holistically for thriving.
Yeah. Yeah. The other question I have for you, which may be of relevance to the audience, is why does everything seem to happen all at once? Like when the shit hits the fan, for example, recently a hurricane in Houston, and then, or just everything like a market crash, or just everything just hits it all at once. Why is that? And why do you give power to synchronicity?
Yeah. So when events happen collectively, to me, the guidance is that we as a group are looking to something that is collapsing, not just for an individual, but for the collective. And that while we cannot necessarily, as one person, change the collective, we are understanding that there's a collective belief that we have bought into that is no longer supporting the thriving and the continuous evolution of our species the way it is in an effortless and joyful way. Therefore, we must be willing to detach ourselves from what we have plugged into that is giving us, that has given us as of now, enough power to stand. Today, it does not. And what does it mean to me within the group? And to me, it's really a big guidance, a big synchronicity to show us something is collapsing around you, just like everything collapsed with me when I was 24. And it was, once again, didn't feel good. And yet it was so essential for the crack in the wall that showed me what was possible instead of the limiting world in which I used to live in.
Yeah, it reminds me of because now we have this kind of battle between old and young, and just you can see it in everything. You can see it in divisiveness. You can see it in the politics. You can see it in the just like things like education don't work, and our healthcare system doesn't work, and just our financial system doesn't work, and we've got unstable climate. Just see it all over, and it's just interesting how you describe it. It's like this collective consciousness, and we have to continue to evolve. But like you want people that don't want just wants the status quo, and which kind of brings me to this idea of you have cosmic compass experience, how it transformed lives. What are key takeaways from this idea?
Yes. So the Cosmic Compass is actually a tool that I designed about 18 years ago that is actually a game format. And I can show it to you here. The board is a board game. And the board right now, it's actually the traveling version that you're seeing here. If not, it's in the box. And so the game, because just like everything else, when I was 24 and my world appeared to have collapsed, I would have wanted a map and a compass to guide myself. And no one had created it. So what I realized is that if I had a map to use and a compass to really navigate with it, life would be so much more, feeling so much safer, joyful, guided. And so I designed the game as a tool to, I would call it a translator to your soul. So a translator to your higher self. Why? Because technically and in universal principle, every time we have a question, by the nature of duality, we have the answer attached to it right away, because the question cannot arrive without its answer. But what's happening is because the answer is always a consciousness level above the question, we don't always see it unless we tune into the part of us that has access to that higher consciousness, which is our soul. In order to tune into the soul, we're going to have to use our intuition. And most of us have detached themselves from the language of this vertical communication, as I call it, which is our intuitive capacity. And the game is actually translating what your soul is sending you every time you ask a question. Instead of somebody else telling you what to do, you're going to ask yourself the question. There's a series of cards that you are going to use in very specific design, and that reveal 8 clues, 8 information that already exist within your consciousness. But because your conscious mind does not factor them in that way, you cannot perceive the resolution to your question. The game does it. The game offers you the design of these 8 information that, because you're going to place them in that design, it's going to provide you the map and how to use the map to go from your question to your answer with very practical steps. And so this has become like the amazing tool to guide in corporations, in entrepreneurs, high level, like we're talking 7-8 figures entrepreneurs who only know what they know, because we only know what we know. And at time, daring the unknown to go, let's go play a game to find more of our answers, which is daring in itself. It's not serious, then do it. If your mind thinks it's not serious, there's got to be something there to discover, because it means that ego is not going to go there. It's open to all possibilities, which is where your next level exists. And so seeing like businesses with their team playing this game, family transforming because communication is facilitated through playing a game, it has been such an amazing journey of reconnection and soulful experiences that I would not have even dreamt of when I designed the game 18 years ago. But it is now literally one of the most used tools that my clients call me, like, I need the game. I need a game. I need you to help me with the game. I need to facilitate the game. And there's a training to learn how to become a facilitator of the game as well, so that other coaches can use it as a tool to guide their clients using intuitive strategies, not just the more linear strategies that they tend to have been taught or used before.
Yeah, and then so this is really interesting. And so a follow-up question to that is, as you were talking, thought came to my mind. And for example, you have this, I can give you an example. For example, this one client of mine, he knows he's in the wrong profession, but he's just doing it to please his parents, and they're first generation immigrants, and they want him to be a doctor. That's like the only thing he knows. And he knows he just knows he's living this false lie, right? Or another, like a woman marries the wrong man, right? And we have these higher consciousness decisions. And then, so why these decisions are really hard to let go of everything to start anew, versus the universe sending you, like basically pushing you out. What's better, like you consciously making that hard decision, or the universe making that decision for you? I'm just that was what came through my mind.
Yes, what you need to realize is that, or we need to realize, is that there's not an experience that is good and an experience that is not good. There are options of experiences that we have the power to decide. It's almost like asking me, oh, should I go to Spain, France, or Italy for vacation? You can go to any of them. They are just different experiences. What we need to ask ourselves is, at the end of that experience, who is the me I am going to meet every day in front of the mirror? And if that you're meeting is the one that is the greatest joy, the greatest excitement for you to meet and wake up to every morning, then you have to go through that journey. So if for you, there's an experience that, like, France is going to be, yeah, that's awesome, I want to do it, I want to meet my French version of myself and eating this and whatever I can imagine, that there's excitement into this. Whereas, I don't know, I want to I could go to Spain, but I just feel more intimidated because I don't speak Spanish, and just when I see at the end it's going to be not as exciting, then it becomes a pure choice of self-expression. Is that, do I want to be challenged, Or do I want to be excited? Where is the excitement? Is it just the food and the Eiffel Tower, the excitement? Or is it like, I want to challenge myself with Spanish because I need to push myself? Both versions of you are extraordinary. It's just you need to be the one saying, I'm not going to Spain just for the heck of going to Spain. I'm going to Spain to meet the challenged version of me. So you are going to transform through that journey. Right? So it's not that the universe is pushing you one way or another, is that there's one, we are always pushing ourselves. One is more of a comfort zone. The other one is just a different version of you that shows up. Which one has the most excitement is the one I will engage you to jump into, because if there's more excitement, then there's more power. And if there's more power, there's more abundance. And why say no to abundance?
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Just reflecting every time I've procrastinated, stayed in my comfort zone to make a hard decision, it usually piles up and usually has a moment of just you have to do this or else. And or sometimes the universe will show up and just basically decide for you. And that's also hard too. So it's either really interesting. I know we have a couple more minutes. One thing is talking about is shifting from ordinary to extraordinary using your methodology. What steps can individuals take to shift from ordinary to extraordinary, and advice that you have for people, struggling? A lot of millennials, Gen Z are struggling to find their purpose, direction in life. Really, the old mantra doesn't really apply to them anymore. What do you have to say?
So the way I share it is I allow people to start looking at the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that extra. And that very often, as long as we are going to say that the extra is outside of ourselves, we're never going to find it. What we need to realize is we are the extra, because the unique factor in our life is us. And so the work is more about go within, discover how unique you are, and you're going to find out how extra you are, and how you are the one who add the extra in your ordinary. Because the last thing, use a lot of energy outside of yourself to create and engineer a life that has experiences that are extraordinary, because that's what people tend to do. Oh, I'm going to go do my list of 50 things that I want to do, and then I'm going to be on social media, telling everyone how my life is cool, but I'm exhausted. I spend a lot of money, time, energy moving myself, and usually removing from relationship, communication, connection, health. And the work is not to actually get out of ourselves, is to actually bring life within ourselves. But for that, we're going to need to actually realize we are life itself. We are the extra, the unique space in which the purpose is hiding. So for all millennials who are looking for their sense of purpose, meet yourself, and you're going to find it. Like, it's going to be revealed by the fact that you are discovering how unique you are, where there's no rarest piece in your life journey, like the life puzzles. You are the piece that is the most unique in your entire life. And usually that's the last one we go look for the extra. And that's the first one we need to go back to. It's here, it's available, it's free. We just have to introspectively ask ourselves the right question, and that are essential, not questions such as how can somebody love me, but really, what is love? And when we start answering this deep question, we're going to start having a different outlook on ourselves, which will be projected on a different outlook on life.
What do you say that really makes sense. I myself, I'm very intuitive and I like to introspect, and I can sense different things, a little bit more sensitive to the things going around. For some people, they're like, what is intuition? I can't sense things. They're more like logical. How do they tap into this? Does everybody have intuition, or is it only certain people with certain abilities?
Okay, so what we need to understand is that intuition is a language. So English is a language, French is a language, Japanese is a language, just name it. What's happening is these French, English, Spanish language is what I call an horizontal language. We are using this language to communicate with somebody on the same level as us. Intuition is a language that allows us to communicate uniquely between our lower self and our higher self. By design, intuition doesn't have a dictionary that works for all of us. It has to be, we are writing the dictionary. And in order for us to write the dictionary, we're going to need to start meeting ourselves, spending a lot of time with ourselves, most of the time in silence, to start listening, opening, and hearing or feeling or sensing or touching or testing what it is that we are experiencing. And that requires a lot of dedication, a lot of focus, perseverance, which most people are so, and we have been taught to be so distracted with outside information, and which doesn't stop. That's the reason why we appear to be detached from the capacity to be intuitive. But intuition is actually the primary language we all speak. We just have to be recreating the containers that allows us to practice that language, which is where, when I take people in retreats, for example, or take them through a program for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, we are creating this container for specifically practicing that language.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I love how you say you have to start developing it through introspection. And the first time, because like I've honed it since I was like 11 years old, so it's natural. But somebody that doesn't, they have to start using it. And really interesting. I know how can people contact you and follow you and check out your work, follow your socials, etc.?
Yes, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share that. You can find me at alinehanle.com. So my name, my first name, last name, and .com. You can find me also at experienceextraordinary.com, which leads to the same space. And then on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, you're going to find me at Aline Hanle. And please DM me and reach out to me if you have any question. I will reply right away.
Yeah, I love that. And for all the audience, let's thank Aline for coming on, and give her socials a like and follow. Check out her work and reach out to her for coaching. Really interesting conversation. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate, Christopher. Your questions were very insightful, and hopefully it helps a lot of people see clearer in themselves.